count the line, to see what changes they had to do. But this means what? Now, nothing is urgent, because when it starts to be urgent, when the buffer here on a specific configuration went to 1/3, only then it's urgent. And yes, we had enough capacity, which means now we can really respond to true orders from the market. Also, we are shipping all the time, because we are not shipping anymore full trains. It turns out that if we ship not full trains, but full carts of trains, it's the same thing. Okay? The train company also said, thank you, you are not blocking our system. Now what happens? You are coming to the dealer today, and you say, I don't want any one of these 100. This is exactly what I want. The dealer checks on his computer whether or not it's legitimate. In other words, whether or not it's one of the 7.5 million. And then he say, sign. Because, now it depends where you are. If you're in Chicago, 11 days, we'll give it to you. If you're in Florida, 15 days, we'll give it to you. If you're in California, 19 days, you'll have it. 98% guaranteed. This is a performance for the last 3 years. This is reality. Do you understand what can be done? Now, if they could have done it with such a huge complexity and convincing the dealers to collaborate. You know what's the meaning of convincing the dealers to collaborate? The dealers are not employees of GM. These are separate business and big businesses. This is businesses that do not exactly have a history of trust with the car company. Anybody that is in dealership in cars knows to what extent you hate your car company. And they gave you plenty of reasons for that. Convince all of them to participate in that and to change such fundamental things. And if this could have been done very quickly, the whole change, from the minute that it was introduced to Cadillac until it was working, took less than 6 months. And that took also the time to build the land and to do the original warehouses and so on a memo scale. Took less than 6 months. And if GM can move so quickly, so can you. Still, we haven't finished. There is an issue here, as I've already alluded. There is an issue here of measurements. For example, if you are a plant and you are supplying warehouses of your own company, have you noticed that the minute that you ship, it's registered for yourself as if it was a sale? All of a sudden, you have to hold back. You have to change the measurements. And the question starts to be, what are the measurements? What are the measurements that if you will obey them, and remember they must be simple and they must be logical. If you obey them, by that you helped the whole company. As a matter of fact, what we are actually asking is, what are the measurements of the supply chain? Interesting question, correct? We'll talk about it after the break.
We now have a 15-minute break.
Measurements, not just of the distribution, but of the whole supply chain. But before I start with that, let me make some comment, which is after that, we have actually finished something. We haven't finished with the entire supply chain, but we finished with the logistic of the supply chain. Remember, as long as we are not dealing with marketing and sales, we haven't finished with the supply chain. But we finished the whole section of the logistic. And due to that, I would like to give more time to questions and answers. So if you have a question about the entire supply chain, all the last 4 sessions, rush to the phone, submit your question, and maybe you'll be on air. I will give more time for question and answers at the end of this program. Fine, measurements. Now let's remind ourselves what is the most important things in measurements. I'm talking about, first of all, on measurement of the plant. After that, I will expand it to the whole supply chain. Plant is a part of the supply chain. The most important thing about measurement is to remind ourselves what is the purpose of measurement. We are measuring not in order to have numbers on paper. We are measuring in order to induce the parts to do what is good for the system as a whole. This is the most important things on measurement. Measurements is not just numbers. Measurements are the vehicle to influence a behavior. Wrong measurements influence wrong behavior. Correct measurements means they influence the right behavior. And what's the meaning of right behavior? The meaning is inducing the parts to do what's good for the system as a whole. Now let's look on it. Let's talk in terms of, I'm a plant, I have to ship to the clients. One of the things which are important, remember, I am not a whole organization, I'm just a plant. One of the most important things that we measure today is how many times do we ship on time? Correct? Usually we are doing it in terms of percent. We have, this plant is shipping 85% on time. This plant is shipping 90% of time. This plant is really bad, it's shipping only 70% on time. I have a problem with this measurement, even though the whole world is using it, and because of it, in order to communicate, I myself am using it, as you've noticed. 90% on time, this means maybe that all the orders are the same. Are all the orders the same? One order is for $100, another order is for $100,000. I've missed one of them, who cares what? Something is wrong here, no? We are assuming as if all the orders are the same when we are talking about percentage. What about the dollar value of the order? And then there is something else. Oh, I missed by a day. Oh, I missed one order by a month. Is it the same? What about by how much time have I missed? Where is it going into the measurement? And now let's remember, if we really want to induce people to do what's good for the company as a whole, do you think that we should demand from them to think in terms, wait a minute, we have 10 orders, one of them is big, none of them are small, will you please make sure, and you cannot make them all, will you please make sure that the big order goes out? And the other thing is, okay, one I've missed already. This is my measurement, you know what? Let it be missed by more. I don't want to miss the others. Is it the correct behavior? I can lose a client. So if I'm taken seriously, the measurement should induce the parts to do what's good for the system as a whole, then in terms of fulfilling the need of this next link, I have to take into account not just that I fulfilled it, what didn't I fulfill, and for how long didn't I fulfill it? In other words, I have to take into account both dollars and days. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? That's why I'm suggesting a new measurement. And this measurement, since both time is important here and dollars is important here, the unit of the measure will be dollar days. It's not dollars, it's not days, it's dollar days. And I'm suggesting something called throughput dollar days. What is the definition of throughput dollar days? Look on all the orders that you haven't shipped yet. Okay? And sum up the throughput dollars of each one of these orders that you haven't shipped. Multiply each one of them by how many days you were late. Sum it all up. That's something that has a meaning. How many dollar days you haven't shipped? Not dollars, not days. How many dollar days you haven't shipped? That's the thing that really is a good measurement to know whether or not you are satisfying the demand of the next link or not. You sum up the throughput of all the products that you haven't shipped on time times the number of days from receipt of the order until you shipped. Remember, receipt of the order in terms of the distributions that we talked now, you should had all the inventory already in the plant warehouse. Okay? And that's why it's from receipt of an order. If you are talking about it, you don't fulfill a plant warehouse. For example, you are in production to order, not to stock. Then you have to do summation of all the throughput of the orders that you haven't fulfilled times the number of days from commitment date until you shipped. In other words, not from receipt of order, but from commitment. For example, you promised to ship in this and this date. If you ship before or at that, perfect. If you shipped after that, what's the difference? Remember, if you are producing for stock, in other words, for distribution, then you must be able to replenish immediately from the plant. All the stock should be there. Fine. This is one measurement. Now, how much would we call excellent performance? How much throughput dollar days should we call excellent performance? 0. That's the target. We want 100% customer service. So we want $0 days. By the way, do it today and you'll see how many dollar days. Dollar days has a meaning. Dollar days has a physical meaning. For example, when you go to the bank and you ask for a loan, okay, you don't pay just by the amount of money that you took, but also by the number of days until you return it. This is the meaning of dollar days. Now take the amount of dollar days that you don't ship on time, now compare it to how much was the loan and you had to take this money, but imagine yourself going to the bank and getting a loan for this amount of dollar days, and then you'll see what amount is there. Remember, all this, if you will reduce to 0, is money that you don't have to borrow. Fine. This is number 1 measurement for a subsystem. That's number 1 measurement. This is totally in line now with just-in-time. Number 1 measurement. This measurement can be turned into a very effective measurement internally inside the plant. Because if we don't have it in the warehouse, the plant itself gets a penalty of these throughput dollar days. But we can now attach this penalty to where? The minute that we needed this inventory and it wasn't in the warehouse, at that minute, what do we have to look for? Where the inventory is in, correct? And who gets then the dollar days? That department. Do you think that then this department will expedite it immediately? Oh yes. The minute that they are delivering it, passing it to the next department, what happens? The throughput dollar days moves to the next department. What happens then? They start to, have you noticed something? We don't need expediters anymore.
We have dollar days.
We have dollar days. That's the meaning of good measurement. What is the meaning of good measurement? Something that is telling our people to do what otherwise we have to tell them, stop everything, do that. We don't have to tell them anymore, stop everything, do that. It's like hot potato. It becomes everybody passing into the other. That's exactly what we want. But that by itself is not enough. Why? If we have just this measurement, then we are running the risk of people trying to build inventory to the sky in order to compensate. Yes, we want them to build inventory if it's needed to compensate for that. Remember, number 1 rule of managing is be paranoid. Also, number 2 rule of management is be paranoid. What is number 3 rule? No. No, not at all. That's a huge mistake. Number 1 rule is be paranoid. Number 2 rule is be paranoid. Number 3 rule is not go back to 1. It is don't be hysterical. In other words, don't build inventories to the sky just for the heck of it. Be sensible still. Okay? Which means we have to compensate with another secondary measurement. In other words, we do want this to be the prime measurement, but we don't want that people will become hysterical. Okay? The secondary measurement is involving what? It's in order to induce people not to build too much inventory. Okay? So let's look again. What should be here the measurements of inventory? And again, look what is intuitively the measurement today. Something that we've started this session with. When you come and ask people how much inventory do you have, what do they say? They say $2 million, and they say about 6 weeks. Have you noticed? Intuitively we understand that inventory should not be measured just by dollars. Time is not less important. As a matter of fact, what I'm suggesting is, once again, let's realize it. The real measurement here is not dollars, and it's not days, it is dollar days. Let's look on the definition now of the secondary measurement. It's called inventory dollar days. It's summation of the value of all the inventory. Remember, according to TOC, the value, as I suggest, is raw material value. Okay? So you don't have to do too much calculation here. The value of all the inventory times what? How many days we are having it in our possession. So maybe this item is expensive, but we're holding it only for 5 days. This item is less expensive, but we're holding it for our grandchildren. You will not hold it for your grandchildren. Do you understand that this measurement prevents what? Not the thing that maybe instead of 10 days, 11 days, because this will have a small impact on that. But to cover ourselves with inventory that barely moves, the penalty here is huge. In other words, this is a perfect measurement for not blocking paranoia, but definitely blocking hysteria. The target here is what? Not zero. It's reduce. Reduce. Want to show me that improve? Show me that you've reduced. Remember, the target in throughput dollar days, which is the primary one, is 0. This is correct for the warehouses. This is correct for the plant. This is correct for the department within the plant. This is actually should go to any subsystem. Why do I stress subsystem? Because if it is a whole system, what is the measurement? Throughput, investment, operating expense. In other words, the bottom line. That's the measurement. This is for subsystem. If the subsystem will be measured according to that, don't worry, you will have good customer service. You know what? All system is composed only of subsystems. If all the subsystems are behaving correctly, we are okay. In order to see what's the impact of using such a thing on the behavior, let's ask ourselves several questions. Remember what I'm assuming here. You have now the regional warehouse, and you have, much more important for me here, is the plant warehouse. Okay? And we are replenishing. We are in the pull rather than push mode. And everybody now is measured according to those measurements. What will be now the behavior? Let's look on item by item. What will be the impact on the way the plant is scheduling? How is the plant scheduling today? Today, the plant reacts to emergencies that are coming from individual warehouses. Even though in the whole system there are enough inventory. Due to that, what is happening in the plant? Emergencies are the name of the game. Moreover, I have 100 now, it's emergency. If I will do only 100, tomorrow another warehouse will scream. So there is emergency for 100, it is 500 coming. Which means we are batching. Because things are urgent, fine, but everything all the time is urgent. Big deal. Oh yes, we do want to know what is the demand. So what we're asking for is forecast. The forecast we know already that is not exactly reliable. As a matter of fact, there are other words to describe how a material manager calls a forecast. Okay, some 4-letter words. So it's actually almost chaos. If we have the plant warehouse, Now tell me, how am I going to schedule? If the plant warehouse is full totally, then what? I'm going to schedule what? 0. And if everybody is standing idle? Excellent. This means definitely where is the constraint? Not in my plant. And if I make people work, I don't help anybody. That's a mistake. The Roadrunner technique. Remember still session 1? If some items I have 1/3, other items I have 2/3, now an item went below full. Now I know not only what do I have to produce, I know also what are the priorities. What is the priorities? According to how much is already consumed from the plant buffer. And I don't have to go and ask the market and so on. It's in my place. I know exactly what to do. Too simple? There isn't too simple. Remember, something that bothers me all the time. Most people somehow have been trained to believe that the more complicated the problem, the more complicated the solution. This is wrong. Every physicist will tell you that. The more complicated the problem, the simpler the solution must be, otherwise it will not work. What is a solution that you know that it smells correct? A solution is to say, aye, of course. Scheduling becomes not a nightmare anymore. It's much, much better, much, much easier, and I don't have to chase some guesses. Next question. When do I expedite? Well, when do I expedite? When the consumption was so much that I consumed region 1. In other words, that I have left less than 1/3 of what I want to hold. Then I expedite, even if it means breaking a setup. Was there any order? No. But there will be an order. Okay? As a matter of fact, if I will expedite, maybe there will not be an order. If I will not expedite, there will be an order for sure, and then I will run out. I don't have stock. Rules very simple. I don't expedite anymore because one of regional warehouse screams hell, even though I know that the whole system in other places is full with inventory. Very logical, and now you know that there is a reason to do it. More than that, you know that there is a reason. It's called $3 days. It's your reason. It's not because some warehouse is screaming. It's because otherwise your measurement will go kaput. Next one. What is the impact on the way the plant is considering promotion, seasonality, forecast? What is now the way? Because let's remember, many times we are working in a seasonal market. More than that, even if the market is not seasonal, many times we are creating peaks in the market. It's called promotions. How should we react to that? On those items which are subject to seasonal, or those items that we make a promotion, we do expect what? We do expect that the overall consumption of the market will go up. Which means, what is the change that we have to do? We have to increase the size of the buffer. That's all. It's not emergency, it's not nothing. We have to increase the size of the buffer. And when the season is off, decrease it back. This is of utmost importance, especially when we are talking about big peaks. What is a big peak? If you are in the fashion business, you know what's a big peak. Okay? If you are in a toys business, you know what is a big peak. It's called Christmas. If you are in the States and you are in the candy business, you know what is a big peak. Do you know what's the biggest peaks that I've ever seen? It's in the candy business in the States. It's called Halloween. Okay? You may sell half of the year thing in 1 month to the system. Usually, how do we do this from the peak? We cannot have enough capacity for producing the peak at the time that the peak exists. So we have to produce much earlier, which means increasing inventories for a long time. And then we are selling it and we pray that the forecast was right. Because if the forecast is not right, the damages are very big. You see, if we forecasted that we sell at this level and we sold less, what is the damage? All these inventories that we are stuck with. If we forecast this level and the actual consumption was at that level, what is the damage? By far bigger. What is it called? Lost sales. Oh, we don't see it in front of our eyes for months and months, like the inventories that we don't have to get rid. But the damage is much, much bigger in terms of impact on the bottom line. It's lost sales. Now, what is the chance that you will not miss up or you will not miss down? What is the chance? About the chance of a snowflake in hell. One of the ways you will miss. And that's why people hate these seasonalities, but they are part of our life. What happens when we are using all this mechanism? Remember, now we can move from the plant to the store within a week or two. The peak might be 2 months, or if we're talking about fashion goods, it's 3 or 4 months is the actual season. Which means what? We can replenish still within the period itself. So if, for example, we expect this is a level, since we know that we can produce so much within the peak itself, let's assume that this is a level. Now the chances of being wrong downwards is very small. And if we are wrong upwards, we can compensate without paying a cent. This is the thing to do if you are in a seasonal business. Do you understand that this solves it? Look, for example, if you are in a shop. The shop gets this cloth. They know that they are getting it. Now, if it didn't, this type of clothes with this color didn't move, they are stuck, and then what does it do? A sale. Do you know how much money is lost? How much is money is lost in the sale? What is the reductions that we get in the sale? 2%? No. Making the sale means 50%, which means it's the whole profit gone. The whole margin is gone. Everything. If it's going well, now the heart is bleeding. Because what do they have to tell the customers? Sorry, 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 sorry. Why to tell sorry? Instead of it, to tell them, okay, I've sold 1, I've sold 2. It builds new ones here. And yes, now those that really are moving, the plant is producing. Why? Because the shop have taken it from the original warehouse, and the original warehouse took it from the central warehouse, and the central warehouse immediately, it's a plant. They're producing exactly the things that really move, rather than praying that you'll know in advance what will move and what not. Does it make sense to you? Do you understand that all of a sudden, detailed forecast is not needed, and what is needed is trends? Because what we have to do is just to shift the level of the buffer at the plant, nothing more than that. All of a sudden, we don't need a crystal ball. What we need is to know that in the summer is hotter than in the winter. But if it is going to be on a specific day 25 degrees, or 23 degrees, or 20... sorry, I'm using Israeli temperatures. I will use Dutch temperature. 7 degrees! Summer in Holland? Last year I was here. You had 1 week summer. Why do you talk about negligible things? 1 week.
Sometimes in the weekend.
Yeah, sometimes in the weekend if you are lucky. Yeah? In the most of the world there is also summer, so we have to consider it. Fine. This is so important. If we do what we just said, we do not need long-term detailed forecast on the product level. Thank God, because it's impossible to get. What we need are trends only. And these trends are in order to know when to increase the plant buffer and so on. That's all. Next one, next consideration. What will be the impact on the way the plant is trying to improve on lead time? Remember, prime measurement is throughput dollar days on the plant. Secondary measurement is inventory dollar days. What will happen to the plant willingness and desire to reduce its lead time? It's not anymore a dictate from corporate. It becomes the plant real major movement. Because if they will reduce the lead time, they can much more easily reduce the throughput dollar days into 0, while at the same time reduce the inventory dollar days. That's the way to become a hero. That's the only way to become a hero. Now I don't have to ask the plant, oh, you have to do that and that and that and that, and on top of it that. It becomes one and the same. Remember, give 700 targets, you don't give anything. Okay? Now it becomes the same. Okay? What we told you is improve on throughput dollar days. We wanted to see it at 0. Reduce inventory dollar days. I don't have to tell you to reduce lead time. This is now your program, not corporate. And if you remember, since the throughput dollar days is going also to the departments, it's not just the plant manager initiative, it's each department. But that's not the only thing. Let's look on the next one. What is the impact on the way the plant tries to reduce setup? What is causing us, if we have large setup somewhere, what does it cause us? Batching. And because of this batching, reaction for 4 products taken at the same time from the buffer is now longer. And if we are talking about small quantities, we have to produce more. What does it impact on the inventory dollar days? Big. Now what happens? I don't have to tell the plant, you have to go on just in time, you have to reduce the setup. I don't have to tell it. It's their problem now. And the minute that they reduce the setup, what happens to their measurements? To their throughput dollar days and inventory dollar days. The same measurement immediately improves. All of a sudden, everything becomes aimed to the same thing. All of a sudden, we're getting this phenomenal focusing without running after each one separately and giving the impression that we have initiated 700 different initiatives. That's not the only thing. Now comes something which is unbelievably important. What is the impact on the way the plant is trying to improve quality? At first glance, it looks no impact. Huge impact. Because suppose that you have shipped the order today. And then it turns out that what you shipped was defected. Did you really deliver? No. Can I repeat? You've shipped it immediately. What do you mean it? You've shipped something damaged, something which is not good quality. You haven't delivered at all. So it is revealed after 2 weeks. Now you're shipping the right stuff. Fine. How much did you incur? 2 weeks on this order. What did Deming and TQM have tried to teach all of us? Quality at the source. Quality at the source. That's the way to bring quality at the source. Why? Because now you are praying that if you did do wrong quality, that somebody will find it as fast as possible. That's the biggest incentive to have quality at the source. Do you see how everything comes together? The whole bottom line measurement of the plant, the whole initiative of corporate, the whole initiative of just-in-time, the whole initiative of TQM, and basically lean initiative, all are coming together so perfectly. How many measurements do we have? 2. That's all. Not 700. Are they fair? Oh, yes. Can people relate to them? Oh, yes. What do you have to do in order to implement them? To go about what I've done just now in half an hour for a whole day. Take the people and say, fine, if this will be the measurement, what will be the impact on that? And don't tell them like I've told you now. Cause them to develop it. They will come with it. Let them debate it. Once people start to understand each one, the impact on each one, now they start 2 things. One is they accept it, but something much more. They really understand it. Remember what I've said in one of the previous sessions about measurements? Tell me how you measure me and I'll tell you how I will behave is very correct. But I said something else. I said, change my measurements to new ones that I do not fully comprehend. And nobody knows how I will behave, not even me. You must make sure that when you change the measurements, that all people really comprehend it. What is the meaning of comprehend? They start to see what is the impact on their behavior. how should they behave in order to score high, and what type of behavior will cause them to appear bad. That's why I'm saying all this list that I've just went, a whole day. Let them develop it, let them debate it. Now you see what's happening. They know exactly what is required, they move. You do it either by not explaining it all or by saying it half an hour, and you have, from one side, unbelievable resistance, and the other one, unbelievable mistakes. You create chaos. This takes time. Remember, don't you realize that this is the opposite of what we taught people for 40 years to do? So give them one day to adjust to it. Fine. But we still have to talk about the measurements for the whole supply chain. Why? Because many times the supply chain is not composed of subsystems, but it is composed of different organizations, whole systems. Each one of them have their goal of not making money for the chain as a whole, but making money for their company. Is it understood? Yes or no? Don't ask companies to be altruistic, especially when they've committed to their shareholders to be egotistic. What is the measurements here? As a matter of fact, there is no problem in terms of operating expense and in terms of investment for each chain, for each in the chain. Where is the real problem? The real problem is coming with throughput. And there are two major questions regarding how do we measure throughput in a supply chain. One is the question, when did the sale took place? The time. The other question is, what is the value of the sale? If you're talking about a supply chain of one company selling to the other. Today, what is the answer for the first question? First question, when did the sale took place? Whenever we shipped. Is it good for even the company itself? Look, here I have distribution. The distribution asked, I shipped. I record the sale. Now my inventory is stuck in the distribution. What actually happened? I became more remote from my market. And this will come and backlash. And I will get all this oscillation. I will be dead. Oh, not immediately. In 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, I'm still sensitive to it. But if it's next quarter, I'm not sensitive to it. I'll better be. You know what they're saying. Many times, many companies are living for quarter to quarter. Okay? Do you agree with me with the following motto? And I call it a motto. As long as the end user haven't bought, nobody have sold. Shall I repeat? As long as the end consumer didn't bought, nobody in the chain have sold. It's an illusion. These sales, these internal sales. Do you agree with me? As a matter of fact, just yesterday I read a beautiful article in the Apex magazine. And one of the articles there was about a company called Featherbone. Featherbone is one of the companies that Gus Whalen is a president of that company, and he almost forced me to look on the supply chain. And together we've organized the whole supply chain. That was in, since Featherbone is producing clothes for children. So it was the company that produces the thread, and the companies that put with the cloth, and the companies that produce the cloth itself, and the company that has all this chain of shops that sell it. The whole supply chain together. And that was the first time when we've really analyzed the whole supply chain together. He's talking about his results, which are quite extraordinary. But the thing that really impressed me is that he said the most important thing was the new motto of the company. As long as the end user have not bought, we have not sold. And this should be stick in our heads. Okay? So, when is the time of the sale? When the end user have bought. Now remember, today companies cannot afford it. Why? Because the lead time is so long that we cannot afford it. But if we do these things, then it's much, much quicker. As a matter of fact, the thing that already exists in several chains is what I've recommended, which is the sale is when the end clients have bought. And that's the day that the money is spread. The same time the customer paid, everybody get paid. And you know what? These companies have achieved such a shrinkage of lead time, because otherwise they will not have dared to go into it, that they get the money under that before they get the money today. Yes, I've shipped to you, I've sold. This does not mean that you paid me. There is 45 days or 60 days and so on. Okay? Under that, I haven't sold. Only when the end client have bought, I've sold. But I'm getting the money within 30 days or less. But how much money do I get? In other words, what is the value of the sale? And here I have a huge reservation relative to what most companies are doing today. What's the meaning of value of the sale? For whatever, I've sold it to the next link. This assumes a fixed price per product. Our next session will be on marketing, where we will go deeply into the fact that there shouldn't be, and there isn't any one fair price to the product. Because the product value is determined according to the needs of the client, not according to your cost. And different clients may have different needs. So this notion of fixed price, fair price, is coming from where? It's coming from cost accounting. This is a cost plus a reasonable margin. By the way, what is a reasonable margin? Depends how greedy you are. And here's the notion. Now, who knows the market needs the most? Or let me ask it in a different way. Who is much more equipped to know how much the market is willing to pay? The one in touch directly with the customer, that talks to the customer. In other words, the last link. He knows how much to sell it for, but already at this stage his hands are tied. Because everyone done the price and so on, and now his margins are not so big. So he doesn't have a room to play. So what do you think about the following thing? Since we realize that the link which is the closest to the market has the best knowledge of what the prices of the market is willing to pay, why won't we left it hanging in the air? Let the last chain determine what it is. And by the way, in one region they might pay one price, in another region another price, and so on. Let's give them the freedom to do it. Oh, wait a minute, so how do we know what is our share? This means that the arrangement between the links in the chain should not be this is a price, but it should be I want so much percent of the end price, provided that I'm not getting below this amount of money for the product. In this way I've covered myself, and at the same time I'm leaving the last thing to really do what makes sense. Because sometimes it makes sense to sell it for $15, otherwise we don't sell it at all, and sometimes we can sell it for $30. It depends on what is in the market. And I want to be part of it, no matter where I'm in the link. How do you determine the percentage right now? Very easy. What are the percentage now? Start from there. You know what's the percentage now. Yes, there are chains that are doing it already. Beautiful results. Beautiful results. Unfortunately, we haven't finished yet, because there is another subject, and I'm running out of time, because I want to give you more time for questions. And I knew that that will happen. So I will do it quickly and shortly and sweetly, because in my eyes we are dealing with a problem that shouldn't be there in the first place, which is we are dealing with internal supply chain. Oh, internal supply chains exist, you know, where the plant that sells to another plant that sells to the warehouse all belong to the same company. This is called internal supply chain. In other words, it's a part of the system is buying or selling not just to the external world, but also to another part of the system. But the problem is when we decide to look on each one of them as a profit center, which means we decide something that in my eyes is not exactly sensible, which is to regard a subsystem as if it was a standalone system. And with that, we still want to make any sense. Okay? And of course, we've talked about it in the second session. The only ways that we are now determining the value of the sale is through transfer prices. And transfer price means cost accounting come in, all the local optimum come in, all the local consideration come in, and now we are wasting half of our time to really debate what should be the prices. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time about it because, believe me, I think that the best solution is don't treat a subsystem as if it was a system. Okay? You have the measurement for a subsystem. We just defined them. Throughput deltas, inventory deltas. We have the measurements for the whole system. That's enough. But if you want to do it, still, at least make it in a more sensible way. Now, I don't want to spend on it much time because many of you don't have the problem at all. At the same time, I have to devote to it some time because not few of you, the problem of transfer prices is the core problem of the whole company. And it exists. I've seen more than one large company where the core problem that almost killed the performance of everything is the transfer prices. By the way, Apple had transfer prices. They don't have it anymore, of course. So what do you do then? In terms of operating expense, fine. Only the local operating expense. Okay? Don't charge corporate expense on a plant that cannot do a thing about it. In terms of investment, whatever you invest in that company, that's fine. Of course, the problem is, again, with the throughput. Again, what about the time that the sale took place? Today, it's when we ship to the other plant. Tomorrow, it will be when the company as a whole sold it. In other words, when it crossed the boundary of the company. Then it's a sale, not a minute before. What about the value? And here the biggest problem. What is about the value? Remember, you start to calculate the value according to cost, and you are back to square one. All the problems appears again. I'll give you the answer. Don't faint, please. Yes, there are companies, among them one very large company that already done it. The entire throughput of the sale is registered to any subsystem that participated. We've sold something for $100,000 from the company. One plant has produced a screw to that. For this plant is as if he sold $100,000. The other one has done 99.9, also $100,000. Unfair. Who's talking about fair? Remember what is the criteria? To induce the parts to do what's good for the system as a whole. That's what's the important thing. Oh, so how can we know now we are double booking here? What do you mean double booking? What you mean actually is that I cannot know what is the total sales of the company by adding the sales of one component with another component. True. But why do you have to do it like that? Anyhow, you know what's the sales of the whole company. So what do? You break it in order to add it up, and then you will adjust by the variances? You know exactly what is the sales of the whole company. For that, you don't need to do it. So, what are the benefits? The benefits are huge. If you go back and you will examine the list of things that we said before, what happened to each one of the component of the behavior of the plant, you will find out everything becomes focused. More than that, we can compare two plants. But then we don't compare them on 1 year performance. We are comparing them on how much they improved from 1 year to the other. Anyhow, we have to do it. Because everybody knows to look on 1 year balance sheet or P&L is meaningless. You have to look for 2 years minimum. Same thing happens here. And then we find out something amazing. It doesn't have any negatives. It has only positive, and it has something else. It becomes enormously important in terms of strategic decisions. In terms of should we close the plant or not. Enormously important. And I leave you to do it. You know, you have the list of questions, you know exactly what to ask, and then find out. If we'll do this crazy thing, what will be the impact? Is it going to be good or bad? And if I haven't done any mistake in my thinking, and so is the other who knows how many managers that have implemented it in their few companies that implemented it, okay, but still hundreds of people that thought about it from all sides, we couldn't find anything wrong in it. We couldn't find one negative. Oh, by the way, to implement such a thing is not easy. It's quite an education here. What is the chance that I give that you will do it? Close to zero. So the summary for that will be good luck. Okay? I still want to summarize the distribution. Here is important for me. How to do it right. The first thing to realize is don't push. Don't push. Hold the inventories where it makes sense. What's the meaning of making sense? Now we know. We know how much inventory should we hold at the plant. We know how much inventory should we hold in the regional warehouse. We know how much inventory we have to hold at the sales. All this we know. But how do you go about implementing it?